It was a Wednesday night when everything exploded. I'd just gotten home from work, later than usual because of a meeting that dragged on far too long. The kind of meeting where you're half listening, your mind drifting off, but you have to sit there and nod like everything matters. It was already dark outside when I walked through the door. The familiar warmth of our home welcomed me, but something felt off. The air had this weight to it, like the calm before a storm. As I kicked off my shoes and tossed my keys onto the counter, I called out for Samantha, my wife. She was usually in the kitchen at this time, putting together dinner or scrolling through her phone at the dining table. But tonight, there was no response. The house was silent, unnervingly so. Samantha, I called again, louder this time, walking into the living room. She was there, sitting on the edge of the couch, her arms crossed, her face tight with anger. Her eyes flicked toward me but didn't linger. There was a tension in her posture, in the way her jaw clenched and unclenched, her fingers digging into the fabric of the couch. I stopped in my tracks, a sinking feeling spreading in my gut. I'd seen her upset before, but this was different. This was cold. "What's wrong?" I asked, my voice tentative. She didn't respond right away. Instead, she stood up slowly, like she was forcing herself to stay calm. But I could see it, the rage bubbling just beneath the surface. When she finally spoke, her words were sharp, like knives being thrown in my direction. "Do you have something to tell me?" Her voice was low, controlled, but it dripped with accusation. My heart skipped a beat. "Tell you what, don't play dumb, Daniel." She took a step closer, her eyes locking onto mine. "I know what you've been doing." "What are you talking about?" I asked, genuinely confused. My mind raced, trying to piece together what could possibly be going on. Samantha let out a harsh laugh, shaking her head. "You really think I wouldn't find out, don't you?" "I don't know what you're talking about," I repeated, but I could see it was pointless. She wasn't listening, her face contorted with anger as she pulled out her phone and shoved it in my face. This is what I'm talking about." On the screen was a picture, grainy, taken from a distance, but it was of me. I was standing outside a coffee shop, talking to a woman. My mind instantly raced back to the moment. It was Lisa, a coworker. We'd run into each other during our lunch breaks a few days ago and chatted for a bit. That was it. No big deal, nothing more. "I can explain," I began, but she cut me off. "Explain?" she spat, pacing back and forth now, her emotions unraveling. "Explain how you've been sneaking around behind my back, meeting up with women when you think I'm not watching." "It's not what it looks like," I said, holding my hands up in defense. "That's Lisa, from work. We just ran into each other. It was nothing." "Nothing?" she scoffed. "I'm not an idiot, Daniel. I know what's going on." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This wasn't like her. Samantha was always rational, always the calm one, but now, she was accusing me of something so absurd, so out of left field. I didn't know how to respond. "Look," I said, trying to stay calm, "I swear, there's nothing going on between me and Lisa. We just talked for a few minutes. That's it." She crossed her arms, glaring at me. "So, you're just casually meeting up with women now?" "Huh, just running into them for a chat." "I wasn't meeting up with her," I said, my frustration rising. "We just happened to be at the same place at the same time." "It was a coincidence." She shook her head, her eyes narrowing. "Do you think I'm stupid? Do you really think I believe that?" "I'm telling the truth," I insisted, my voice growing louder. "Why would I lie about this? You know me, Sam. You know I would never cheat on you." Her eyes were filled with doubt, and that hurt more than anything. We'd been together for years, built a life together, and now she was looking at me like I was a stranger. "Then why did someone send me this?" she demanded, holding up her phone again. "Why would they send this if it wasn't something I should know about?" I stared at the screen again, my mind spinning. Who would send her that? Why? There was no logical explanation. It wasn't like I was hiding anything, but someone had gone out of their way to make it seem like I was. "I don't know," I said, feeling helpless. "I don't know why someone would send that to you. But I swear, there's nothing going on." She didn't believe me. I could see it in her eyes. The trust we'd built over the years was crumbling right in front of me. And no matter what I said, it wasn't going to stop. "You've been distant," she said quietly, her voice trembling now. For weeks. You're always coming home late. Always tired. You don't talk to me anymore. And now this. I swallowed hard. She was right. I had been distant lately. But it wasn't because of anything nefarious. Work had been overwhelming, and I'd been stressed out. I should have talked to her about it. But I didn't. I thought I could handle it on my own. Clearly, I was wrong. I've been stressed, I admitted, trying to explain. Work has been crazy, and I know I've been distant. But it has nothing to do with anyone else. I should have talked to you about it. I'm sorry. She looked at me, her expression softening just a little. But the hurt was still there. Why didn't you tell me? I didn't want to burden you, I said, my voice quiet. I thought I could handle it. I didn't realize how much it was affecting us. Samantha looked away, biting her lip. I don't know if I can believe you, she whispered, her voice barely audible. That hit me like a punch to the gut. We'd been through so much together. And now she didn't trust me. I wanted to reach out to her, to pull her into my arms and tell her everything would be okay. But I wasn't sure if she'd let me. Sam, I love you, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I would never hurt you like that. You mean everything to me. Please, believe me. She didn't say anything for a long time, and the silence hung heavy between us. Finally, she let out a shaky breath and looked at me. I don't know what to believe right now, she said softly. I need some time to think. I nodded, my chest tight with anxiety. Take all the time you need, I said, my voice hoarse. She turned and walked out of the room, leaving me standing there alone. The weight of the situation pressed down on me, suffocating. I didn't know how to fix this, how to make her see the truth. All I could do was wait and hope that, in time, she'd realize that I wasn't lying. But deep down, I knew that even if she came around, things would never be the same. The doubt, the suspicion, it was like a crack in the foundation of our relationship. And I wasn't sure if we could ever repair it. I spent the next few days in a haze, barely able to concentrate on anything. The weight of Samantha's accusations loomed over me like a dark cloud, threatening to suffocate everything in our lives. Work became a blur. Emails, meetings, deadlines, none of it mattered anymore. My mind was fixated on one thing, the question of whether my marriage was falling apart. And if it was, how I could save it. Samantha didn't speak much after that night. She didn't leave, but she wasn't really there either. She stayed in the house. But it was as if a wall had gone up between us. We'd exchanged the usual pleasantries, but the warmth we once had was gone, replaced by an uncomfortable tension that neither of us knew how to address. I tried my best to give her space, hoping she'd come around. I knew what she needed wasn't more explanations from me. She needed time to process her feelings, and I didn't want to push her further away. But as the days turned into weeks, that distance only seemed to grow. The silence between us became unbearable, a constant reminder of the trust she'd lost in me. One evening, after yet another awkward, silent dinner, I couldn't take it anymore. I sat down next to her on the couch, keeping a careful distance, and took a deep breath. We need to talk, I said quietly. Samantha didn't look at me. Her eyes remained fixed on the TV, though I knew she wasn't really watching. Her hands were clasped tightly in her lap, and I could see the tension in her shoulders. I don't know what to say, she finally muttered, her voice barely above a whisper. Say anything, I urged. I just need to know what you're feeling. I can't keep going on like this. Sam, she finally turned to face me, her eyes weary and sad. I don't know if I can trust you anymore, Daniel. Her words cut deep, but I knew this was coming. Still, hearing her say it out loud made it all the more real. I don't know what else I can do to prove to you that nothing happened, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I've been completely honest with you. I've told you everything. I just need you to believe me. Samantha's face softened for a moment, but then her brow furrowed, and she shook her head. It's not just about believing you, Daniel. It's about how I feel. Every time I close my eyes, I see that picture. I see you standing there with her, and I can't stop wondering if there's more to it. And then I think about how distant you've been lately, and I can't help but think, maybe I'm just not enough for you anymore. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I couldn't believe she thought that, couldn't believe she felt that way. You're more than enough, I said, my voice cracking. You're everything to me, Samantha. I love you. I don't know how to make you see that. She let out a shaky breath, wiping away a tear that had fallen down her cheek. I don't know if love is enough anymore. The words hung between us, heavy and painful. I reached out, wanting to hold her, to comfort her, but she pulled away, standing up and wrapping her arms around herself. I think we need some time apart, she said softly. My heart dropped. What do you mean? I need space, she said, her voice trembling. I can't think clearly when we're like this. I need to figure out what I want. Panic started to set in. The thought of losing her, of her walking out that door and never coming back, was too much to bear. But at the same time, I couldn't force her to stay. I had to respect what she needed, no matter how much it hurt. Okay, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. If that's what you need. Samantha nodded, wiping another tear from her face. I think it's for the best. I'll stay with my sister for a while, just until I figure things out. I didn't know what else to say. I watched in silence as she gathered some of her things, just the essentials, and packed a small overnight bag. The whole time, my mind was screaming at me to stop her, to beg her to stay, but I knew that wouldn't help. If she was going to come back to me, it had to be on her terms. After what felt like hours, she was finally ready to leave. She stood at the door, her hand resting on the doorknob, and for a moment, I thought she was going to turn around, to say something, anything, that would give me hope. But she didn't. She just glanced at me one last time, her eyes filled with sadness. And then she walked out the door. The silence that followed was deafening. I stood there, staring at the closed door, feeling like my entire world had just crumbled around me. I sank down onto the couch, burying my face in my hands. And for the first time since this whole mess started, I let the tears fall. The next few days passed in a blur. I went through the motions of work and life, but it all felt meaningless without Samantha. I checked my phone constantly, hoping for a text, a call, anything from her. But there was nothing, just the cold, empty silence of our home, and the growing fear that she might never come back. On the third day of her absence, I decided I couldn't sit around waiting any longer. I needed to do something, to figure out who had sent that picture to Samantha and why. It wasn't enough to just say I was innocent. I had to prove it, for both of our sakes. I went through everything I could think of, old texts, emails, social media posts, but there was nothing that pointed to anything suspicious. No clues, no leads. It was like whoever had sent that picture had vanished into thin air. Feeling desperate, I called Lisa. She was the only other person involved in that moment, and I needed to know if she had any idea what was going on. I felt a knot in my stomach as I dialed her number, hoping she wouldn't think I was accusing her of something. Hey, Daniel, Lisa answered after a few rings. What's up? Hey, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I need to ask you something. Sure, what's going on? I explained the situation as briefly as I could, the picture, the accusations, the fact that Samantha had left. Lisa listened in silence, and when I finished, there was a long pause. Wow, she finally said, I had no idea any of this was happening. I swear, Daniel, I didn't have anything to do with that picture. I didn't even know anyone took it. I believe you, I said quickly. I just thought maybe you'd seen something that day, someone following us or taking pictures. Lisa hesitated for a moment. Now that you mention it, there was this weird guy hanging around outside the coffee shop. I didn't think much of it at the time, but he was kind of staring at us. I figured he was just waiting for someone. But now, I don't know. My heart started racing. Do you remember what he looked like? Not really, she said apologetically. He was just ordinary. Brown hair, glasses, maybe in his 30s. Sorry, that's not much help. No, it's something, I said, my mind working overtime. Thanks, Lisa. Of course, she said softly. I hope you and Samantha work things out. She's a great woman. Yeah, I said, feeling a lump in my throat. She is. After I hung up the phone, I sat there for a long time, trying to make sense of everything. Who was this guy, and why had he been watching us? It didn't make any sense. But at least I had a small, fragile thread of hope to hold on to. With renewed determination, I decided to take action. I didn't care how long it took or how hard it would be. But I was going to find out who was behind this. For Samantha. For us. Because I wasn't ready to give up on my marriage. Not yet.